T206 Honus Wagner. And for those that are not able to see it because you are listening to this on Spotify or Apple or wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts, it is graded a PSA 1. To me, it has really nice eye appeal and color for a 1. But almost more importantly, and this is kind of the angle I wanted to take with this card, the provenance behind it. This is known as the All-Star Cafe Wagner. So my first question for you, Brady, is do you still currently own this Wagner?
Yes.
Okay. So my next question for you is, when you were deciding to go after it, I'd like to hear about your process, your strategy, and the last question I have is, did knowing the provenance behind this card have an impact on you wanting to go after it?
Knowing it was the All-Star Cafe Wagner to me made it worth more than a normal one, regardless of how it looks. I've owned everything, Leighton. I've had Baltimore News Ruth. I've had the Doyle error. I've had so many obscure, rare, expensive things, and I never owned a Wagner. I was always the bridesmaid in these auctions. And usually when I really want something, I'll just go spend too much money and get it. But like for some reason, this card had really eluded me for a long time. And I was in the midst of selling a bunch of comic books for some big money and heard that this might be available. So like I basically sold some comic books and bought a Wagner. And I think this card in particular, you can kind of get in the weeds a little bit with from an investing standpoint and say, oh, buy a 2, buy a 3, you need a 4. And my personal opinion is buy a bunch of 1s. Like, because if we go out to the bar and have a drink and we're with you and I are there, Leighton, and we've got 2 of our buddies that don't really know about baseball cards. They know a little bit. And their question to you is, do you have a Wagner? Their question is not what grade is your Wagner?
Totally.
And it's like, yeah, I have a Wagner. Oh, really? Let me see it. Oh my gosh. Oh man, really? How much is that worth? Oh my gosh, you're killing me. Like, it's got wrinkles all in it. It's still worth that much. Yep. So like, this is one of those cards that grade doesn't really matter. And it kind of goes back to our earlier discussion. Just have the card. So yeah, no, I'm super excited. I own this one, and just the story behind it is kind of cool.
Well, it's beyond cool. So I'm going to try to be succinct with my questions. So number one, in terms of the provenance, let's kind of look macro for a minute. It certainly impacted your decision-making with this card. Do you think in the future provenance, because it's certainly very important in memorabilia, but we could be here all day, and so I'm not going to talk about that today. But do you think that provenance in cards is going to be more important moving forward in the future?
1,000%. I think because it is in comic books. It is like, this is what I've learned about all these other categories. Like if you buy a comic book from the Mile High collection, that's like the cream. Like, so my Superman #1, Pop 1 highest graded from the Mile High collection. So like it's got provenance to it. So like even if it weren't the nicest one, it still has that story. So that the brand of the Mile High collection from years past carries weight. So like for me, this Wagner, I think in my head, I justified maybe $500,000 more at the time a couple years ago because of the provenance. Plus it kind of, I needed something because like, it's hard to find a perfectly centered one. Like there's just not enough of them to get like my usual vintage grading standards. So I needed a story behind it to be like, okay, this one's now irreplaceable. Because a Wagner 1, you know, last year was the first year I saw something the other day that one didn't sell publicly in 30 years.
Wow, that's a great stat. And also indicative potentially of what's going to be transpiring in the future. I believe if there's 3 more that come up in the next 5 years, those 3 will be institutionalized. They're going to be put away at some sort of institution, even if it's just the Brady Hill institution. It's going to be buried. Thanks for laughing. It's going to be buried for the next generation of that family or that business to enjoy. So I think you nailed this, because you're right. I'm looking on the screen. Great eye appeal. Yes, it clearly has creasing, but let's be clear. I think that adds to the story of it. And of course, the provenance, to me, just makes it. I want to have a story behind my cards. And listen, Brady, it's no secret that blogging about these collections that I purchase on my website, justcollect.com, is a lot of fun. But candidly, it's an invaluable tool that helps other people find us. And so really, it's kind of like a win-win. I've had so many people kind of find us because they enjoy the stories.